Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Good afternoon, my name's Cliff Roach and I'm an alcoholic. What a nice introduction. That was great. And what a great reading, huh? You don't have to be a member of Al-Anon to have a childhood like that, I'll guarantee you. That was the world's famous zoo at the Roach House. I'm so very grateful to be invited to share at the Al-Anon. It's the first time in my life, 40 years sober, and I got to be an Al-Anon speaker. I finally made it. 40 years ago, I had 8 months of sobriety. Oh, I'm going to do it today. I had 8 months of sobriety, and this little sponsor I had, we live in Oceanside, and he said, we're going to Bakersfield this weekend. We're going to a roundup. I said, okay. Thinking, what the hell is a roundup? You know, it's kind of a rodeo type thing. I get along little doggies, you know. And so they showed up and picked Pat and I up, and we went to Bakersfield to the roundup and changed my life. First time in my life I ever heard speakers, you know, had done a lot of experience. And the Al-Anon speaker was a lady named Ramona from Oklahoma. And probably next to Nell, the greatest Al-Anon speaker that ever lived. That was good. And Pat. Jeez. Try to get back in the big bed somewhere. I don't know. But Ramona gave such a talk. I just walked the streets of Bakersfield crying. It was one of the most moving talks I ever had. But the important thing that happened to me that weekend was I went to an Al-Anon panel. I think she dragged me. I don't know. You know, I didn't know much about Al-Anon at the time. I knew she went. Thank God. Well, my ribs healed. It took a month or so, but they healed. I used to tell her, sit on this side tonight, will you please? This side's already sore. And they had this panel of Al-Anons, and this one lady's name was Ruth. And she had been in Al-Anon 12 years. And she said, oh, and her husband was still drinking and was a violent alcoholic and a very bad man. And she had been in Al-Anon 12 years living with this guy. And she said she was grateful. I was 8 months sober and doing my best in the program, but I did not like AAs got up and said they were grateful. I wanted to punch them right in the mouth. That's what I wanted to do. What do you mean grateful? I never get to drink again? What do you mean grateful? And this lady, when she said that, it just changed my whole attitude on life. What the hell I'm not to be grateful for all the crap I'd been through. And we got to hear Karen this morning, Karen A. And when we were new, we were not close friends when we got sober. We were like two rotten fence posts leaning on each other, you know. A lot of anger, and it was just about over. And then we heard John and Karen very early in our sobriety, in our programs. And, you know, we saw that it could be done. You could live happily together, sober. And then we met Paul and Max and some other people who gave us all, and they all helped us. John and Karen and Paul and Max gave us all kinds of help. And so it was kind of at this convention in 1970, where AA really changed for me. I am an alcoholic, for you Al-Anons that don't hear many of them. People like me make it possible for people like you to have meetings like this. You don't have to thank me. And I was a bad drinker. I had a lot of great times drinking, don't get me wrong. I don't think anybody gets to AA who didn't have a good time for a while. It can't do it to you unless it does it for you. And it did it for me, and I had just great times. But I was a kamikaze drinker. I don't know if any of you know that term. It would be, I'd be at a party and I'd have the lampshade and I'd be the life of the party. Everybody, Cliff's such a funny guy. And I would pick up that drink. And I always knew it was that drink. I always knew it. My mind would say, this is the one, Cliff. You drink this one, you're going to do tricks. and the alcoholics know what I said. Well. And then I'd have the subsequent drinks, and maybe 3 or 4 drinks later was bonsai, and then I would run amok. And I would have these blackouts. Much of my life is hearsay. I see the alcoholics going, I spent most of my life saying, I did? Oh, God, I'm sorry. Your aunt, huh? And these terrible things would happen. I was a fighting alcoholic, and I always lost. And I wrecked cars and all kinds of bad things. And so that's kind of how my drinking went. Pat and I met right after I'd won World War II. And as I always say, she was down on Skid Row looking for an alcoholic to abuse her. And you're looking to be abused, you got your boy here. And we entered this 20-year suicide pact together. And we had that dual disease. I don't know if you had that. We had alcoholism and Catholicism. And we had a kid every 9 months and 20 minutes. That's what it seemed like. Every time I come out of a blackout, who in the hell is that, And they're all right when they're little, like kittens. But they grow, And we had 5 of them, and a lot of horrible things happened. And I was a terrible father. I was a mean drunk and a sarcastic drunk and a violent drunk at many times. And so our kids grew up in that family that the reading was talking about. And that's the kind of family I grew up in. I passed it on. I can remember just before I started drinking when I was 16, I said, I'll never be like them. And I made them look good. But I was one of those functioning alcoholics. I'm one of those drunks that gets up, goes to work every day, and I do the job, and I do it better than you. I was a school teacher, and I was a very good one, high school teacher. I loved the kids. Kids loved me. I did a hell of a good job. They asked her one time, how come your husband's such a good high school teacher? She said, he's a very well-educated adolescent. But as the years went on, none of you will be surprised to know that the drinking just got worse and worse and worse. I had very few blackouts the last few years I drank because I was so afraid of having them. I commit felonies when I'm in blackouts, and they don't like teachers to do that. They kind of like take your license away. So anyway, but I became more and more a daily drinker. I went to AA the first time in 1965, for God's sakes. And I'm a brilliant intellectual, and I have degrees, My late sponsor, Bill, said he's been educated far beyond his intelligence. But when I went to AA in 65, I'm sorry. They seem to have the collective IQ of an orange, And I went for like 3 days, and then the third night I was laying a little Nietzsche on him, trying to cheer him up. And this one guy said, we keep it simple here. I said, no kidding. You could have fooled me, Leroy. So I resigned from AA. That's terrible when you do that. It upsets them so badly, doesn't it? Cliff who? But anyway, for 5 years then, I was in and out of AA. I always remember that first time around. It was 1965, and my politics in 1965 were blow it up or burn it down. I didn't really get rich. I was for peace. And if you weren't for peace, I'd kill you. And my hero was a guy named Eldridge Cleaver. He was a black militant terrorist, and he was my hero. And he'd given a great speech a few months before, and he was talking about the prison system, about how they're always trying to rehabilitate him. He says, you know what they'd never known? He had never been habilitated. And you can't rehabilitate somebody who's never been habilitated. And that's how I felt in the A&A. Evidently, you weirdos at some point in your life had been okay. I've never been okay. I was nuts when I was 4 years old. I lived on the edge of insanity my whole life. And I lived by anger and violence and hatred and revenge. And more than anything else, I lived by fear. Our book says fear was the corrosive element in our lives, and it was certainly true with me. But I'd go in and out of AA. I'd come to AA for 30 days and be drunk for 2 years. That's a slip. Then I'd come for 40 days, be drunk a year and a half, and down and down and down I went. If there's any new alcoholics here today, though, we like to think of the guy coming into AA as being on a park bench in dirty clothes with a wine bottle in a paper bag. The week I came to Alcoholics Anonymous this time, I weighed 163 pounds, had 4% body fat. I used to surf for like 3 hours, then get out and run 5 miles. Could bench press 285. Took me 25 minutes to pass a mirror. Yeah. Don't ask me for directions. I'd say it's right over there. Yeah. My daughters used to get money from me. They used to come up, and I didn't have a shirt on, which was most of the time. My daughters would come up and say, V up for me, Daddy, V up. And I'd say, they go, oh, can I have $5? Yeah, sure. Well, I was sober 2 years before I figured that out. And on it went. And finally, one night we had one of our main events, which the neighbors have come to miss so much. And but weren't you the entertainment? We were always the neighborhood. Hey, he's coming back. He's coming back. They all had those Venetian blind marks on their forehead, from watching. Oh, well, we were entertaining. We were entertaining. And that night we had one of those main events. It was really, and I threatened to move out. And they all said, yay, go for it, Dad, And we had these 5 kids. My oldest son is working his way through high school as a hashish salesman. Never had to give him any spending money, I'll guarantee. I just hit him up for a fifth about once a week. Yeah, Dad, what do you need? Had hair down here. We're talking the late 60s, huh? Hair down to here. His head been like this all the time. Called his mother, man. Hey, man, what's for dinner? Yeah. Oh, he was a pip. You should. He loved LSD. I never used that, but I've seen guys who have. But I'd be right in the middle of a sentence, he'd say, what was that? And of course, the shape I'm in, I'd say, I don't know. What was it? Where? What? And her mother lived with us, and she would say, I'll explain it. We got hysterical a while back. We used to listen to the explanation, for God's sake. And our eldest daughter was in a sick relationship with this lunatic, and our middle daughter was 14 and was into her story. And the little kids just wet the bed and walked in the walls. They didn't know what the hell was going on. It was just a zoo. It was a nut house. Nobody in that house was sane. Pat claims a lot of times I over-exaggerated. I don't know. But as I look back at it and remember, I know that it was too late. No human power could have relieved my family. we were all totally insane, all 7 of us. You know, the experts say for every alcoholic's alcoholism, it destroys 7 lives. And we were right on the median. 5 kids and she and I. God knows she was crazy. She had that pre-Al-Anon. Any of you do that still? Don't you think you had a few too many? No, you had a few too few. That's your problem, lady. Have a couple and loosen up, for Christ's sakes, you know. And she is the worst kind of counters. Oh, I hate the counters, don't you? That's your 5th one today. Shut up and eat your breakfast and leave me the hell alone. So we had this main event, and I threatened to move out, and they were all glad, and I moved out. They were all glad. And I moved down at the beach with my surfboard where I wanted to live anyway. I'd said for years if I get rid of her and those long-haired dope fiend children, I'd be okay. And I got rid of them, and that wasn't it. And I was drinking a lot, and I was missing work, which had always been my red badge of courage. And it was getting worse and worse. I felt like my life was kind of slipping between my fingers. And I went by the house one afternoon. I was haranguing Pat about money, and the hashish salesman was kind of bobbing there in the background, humming a tune from the planet Pluto. And I did something really stupid. As I looked back, I turned to my son and I said, Dave, what's it like not to have your old man around the house? And my 16-year-old son looked me right in the eye and he said, it's beautiful. And he had more reason to be afraid of me physically than any of the other kids. I was much harder on him than the other kids. And I'm standing here over 40 years sober this afternoon because of the courage of a 16-year-old kid. And I went back to that dump on the beach and ranted and raved and snibbled and whined. But I did not take a drink that afternoon. And I went out and sat on the screen porch and watched over the ocean the most beautiful sunset that I have ever seen before or since. And about the time the sun was going down into the water, I had what our big book calls the moment of clarity. Our friend Polly calls it the moment of grace, the gift. Because as far as I'm concerned, it's all just a gift. And I went in the bedroom and dug out the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which I had read in one of my travels through the program. And I thought it was very poorly written. And it read a lot better this time. I read it for 3 days and 3 nights. I called in sick. I didn't go to work. I ate a little bit, slept even less. And I read the big book cover to cover. I read every story. I read the appendix in the back. And in the second edition, there was a story called The Professor and the Paradox. And he was another egotistical school teacher, and he saved my life. And on the 13th of January, 1970, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I was on page 63 again. And if you're new, page 63, there's a little prayer, and the prayer is step 3. I always called it the formal terms of surrender. And in my befuddled condition, it seemed like it would be a good idea if I would kneel down and read that prayer out loud to myself. And I read, God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as you will. Relieve me of the bondage of self. And I've been sponsoring guys now for 40 years. And the number one defect of character of every man I have ever worked with is self-obsession. And before I was 4 years old, I had built this wall. I guess it was to keep you out. I haven't the foggiest idea. Psychology does not interest me. All I know is I built a prison to keep me in. When I was new, Peggy said, alcoholism is the only prison where the locks are on the inside. And this little sponsor that I got said, because you're a brilliant intellectual, there are 12 keys, Cliff, and we numbered them for you. Wow. And you know, for 32 years, I tried to tell you what happened to me that morning, and I couldn't. You know, I could talk around it, but I couldn't tell you. And I was over 32 years, and this little gal in the Grapevine, our magazine, she had done 5 years before. She was in a treatment center. She was 17 years old, and she knelt down and did exactly what I had done 32 years before. She read the third step out loud to herself. And she said in the Grapevine article, I was engulfed by a great laughing love. That'll do it for me. I was engulfed by a great laughing love. And that night I'm knocking on Bill Blake's door, little arrogant, wild man, AA fanatic, who always tried to help me, you know, and I'd come around, I'd just try to get rid of him and duck him. I didn't like him. But it's funny, I was knocking on his door that night. I'm a 5-year loser, in and out, arrogant, overeducated, pompous ass, loser. And Margie, Bill's wife, opened the door. I have never seen anyone so glad to see me in my life. This loser. She's, oh, Cliff. In the house I go. Pours me a cup of coffee. Oh, this is wonderful. Bill's been crazy lately. He's had nobody to work with. Oh, this is so good. Then Bill comes in. Ah, Cliff! In about a half an hour, I'm thinking, anything else I can do to help you folks out? Be glad to help any way I can. That nobody, I was in a meeting 3 weeks later of newcomers, and one of the other newcomers said, what do you mean this is a selfish program? I knew the answer. See, they had been praying for me for 5 years, but they were more glad for themselves. Because anybody around here for any length of time knows you can't have it unless you give it away. You can't stay here unless you're willing to give it away. And that goes for Al-Anons just every bit as much as it does for alcoholics. And so they gave it away better than most people. But that was the last nice thing the man ever said to me, as long as he lived. The nicest thing he said the first 5 years was, shut up. Shut. I told him I have degrees, you know. He says, so does a thermometer, you know, where they stick that sometimes. I thought the first step was, shut up and get in the car. You know, here I am over 40 years sober, and that's true, isn't it? That's the first step. Shut up and get in the car. In the back seat on the hump. There's a method to that too, isn't there? You know, if you're the guy on the back seat on the hump, you become a 12-stepper. You find a new guy. Hey, come with us. Come on the window now, baby. And he took me to a meeting just about every night for 2 years. For 2 years, he took me to a meeting damn near every night. And we didn't go to a meeting in a town. We went to all over Southern California. We went somewhere different all the time. And he took me to all meetings where people were having a good time. He knew me. So I couldn't stay here. I'm sorry. If all there is Great Tunnel meetings, leave me out. I'm going to go where they're laughing. That's a spiritual part of Alcoholics Anonymous as far as I'm concerned. And he took me to meetings where people were laughing. Oh, I love the laughter. I'd have to get me some new scuzzbag newcomer, you know, and take him to a meeting and take him to another meeting and take him to another, maybe the 12th or 13th or 14th meeting. He's sitting there beside me and he goes, gotcha! Oh, we get new little Al-Anons. We take them to AA speaker meetings. That's a lot of fun. And we get her in between us so she can't escape. You remember. And some clown like me is up here saying, I fell in the Christmas tree and smashed all the presents. You know, we're all going, yeah. And this new Al-Anon sitting there. Not funny to her. So we take her to another meeting tomorrow night, you know. And then one night she throws her head back and laughs. When we got you laughing, you know you belong here. Oh, I love the laughter. Nothing I laugh at will ever come back and haunt me again. Stuff I used to lie awake all night, my stomach turning, my teeth grinding. It's funny now, and the hell with it. So if you're new and you're having trouble laughing at yourself, see me after the meeting. I'll be glad to help you. And a little later, Pat went to Al-Anon, and the story started. My kids, I think, probably were certainly afraid of me. I thought that was called discipline, and they were afraid of me. One of the greatest gifts my sponsor ever gave me, he said, if you're even mildly irritated at one of your children, you are to put both hands in your pockets until they walk away. So it was not necessary for me to hit my children. I quit trying to help them, you know. And I believe that my wife's Al-Anon program is it's more because of her Al-Anon program that our family turned out as well as it has. I think for the first couple of years, my sponsor took me to a meeting every night so I wouldn't be in their way. And meanwhile, I was trying to get sober. And he made me take the steps, 1 through 12. And if you're new here today, that's called the program. Step 1 through 12. Everything else, everything this weekend, everything else is fellowship. And nobody loves fellowship more than I do. But I won't try to kid you. The program is step 1 through 12. And if you work the program, be you AA or Al-Anon or anything else, if you work the program, your life will never, ever be the same again. It changed my whole life, everything about my life. And whatever was wrong in my life, and plenty was wrong. You know, she wouldn't go to Al-Anon, had a bad mouth, and the kids were on drugs, and I would go to my sponsor's house, and you know what they're doing over there now? And he would say, come on in, Cliff, tell me all about it. And I would rave and rant and sob and whine, and he would listen. You know how they listen? I've learned to say, making a little noise like once in a while, like, ah. Then they think you're paying attention, you know. But I had to run down sometime, and I'd find it, and he would say, go get Al and take him to the meeting. What the hell has that got to do with a nervous breakdown? It's like June says, ask a guy, what time is it? The horse is dead. So I'd go get Al, you know. Al had no driver's license, of course. And he was a big blowhard, just a terrible blow. I despised him. And I'd get Al in the car and drive him to the meeting, blah, 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 blah. And we'd get to the meeting, set the meeting up, make the coffee. People would come, everybody go home. We'd set the meeting down, stack the chairs, wash the coffee. He was so shaky, we had to do the cups. He just put his hands in the water, you know. But I could drive, you know. And I'd load the blowhard back in the car and drive him home, blah, 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 blah. And I let the blowhard off, and I'd start driving home. And this feeling would come over me. It would start like right here, and it would just like spread out all through my body. Oh, it felt so good, it terrified me. Better than a drink ever did. Better than a drink ever did. It only would last like 40 seconds, you know, but I thought it's because I got rid of Al. But he made me stand at the door and greet people, which I despise because I'm a snob. You know, and I'd say, how are you tonight? Like I really give it. You know, and mop up your coffee and wash your coffee cups. But the best thing of all, he made me go with him on all his 12-step calls. And we used to get a lot of them in those days, any old-timers here remember. And I didn't do much. I'd just stand there and, you know, be an example. And but I picked up the habit, though, of getting to a newcomer's place and looking in his eyes first thing. You know what I see in the newcomer's eyes? I see my eyes over 40 years ago. That empty, hollow, fear-ridden emptiness. And I've taken a guy to a meeting that night and go to his coffee shop after the meeting and look across the table, and the power's in his eyes that night. And I've got to watch that happen. I gave a guy a week or so a cake for 37 years, and I got to see the light come on in his eyes. So if you don't believe in a higher power, I would suggest you hang around long enough to do that. And I've seen the same thing happen in Al-Anon. I remember when Pat and Katie came to the program, we only had a few months, and we had this gypsy meeting where we used to all meet together, AAs and Al-Anon, and they left. And Pat says, what do you think? I said, well, the guy might make it. It's too late for her. Woo! Even her hair, she's like she put her fingers in the socket or something. Ah! She was crazy. And, you know, I love to see her today. She's one of the most peaceful, beautiful, charming, loving human beings on the face of the earth. And she's never missed a birthday of mine, ever. And so, don't tell me about miracles. That lady's the biggest miracle I ever saw. AA, Al-Anon, you name it. You can't get there from here, you know, or you can't hear it from there. But anyway, I did the steps, and I did everything the man told me to. I did the service, and I did the service. And by the way, you know, Mother Teresa was in our area a couple years before she died, and she had a heart attack, and she was in the hospital here, and one of the guys taking care of her, one of the doctors, was a friend of mine, and he said, you know, you couldn't be in the room with that lady and not know that she was a spiritual being. And his reporter asked her this question, and she had an answer in the paper, and I cut that little article out, and I carried it with me till it turned yellow, you know, and rotted away, because the reporter asked it, and she said back to the reporter, the fruit of faith is love. And the fruit of love is service. And the fruit of service is peace. I will comprehend the word serenity, and I will know peace. And the fruit of service is peace. And this lady and I have been trudging this road here now for over 40 years together. And she's improved a lot. I keep looking at my wrist because she made me leave the watch here. It's her fault. Our eldest daughter, Kitty, kind of went wrong. She's been in Al-Anon about 25 years. Can't win them all. Our eldest son has 8 years, the hashish salesman. He travels all over the world. He's an expert on the growing of coffee. Beats the hell out of what he used to grow. He goes to meetings in Zambia, Africa, all over South America and Central America. He goes to meetings everywhere. He loves that little meeting in Zambia. And he's a great AA. Our middle daughter had 12 years and had a slip, and has got 8 years again now. And in 08, she got breast cancer, and she's recovered now, and has some hangovers still from the chemotherapy. You know, they don't kill you before you cure you. And but she's doing okay now, and she's now on doing well. Our youngest son, Chris, has 22 years of sobriety. And our youngest daughter, Mary, she doesn't have anything. She doesn't need it. But what I want to emphasize, if you're new and you have kids out there that are still drinking and that kind of thing, my kids and I talked up in Paso Robles a couple of years ago, and I really understood the people that came up, the tears running down their face and their arms around my kids, because their kids are still out there. So if your kids are still out there, just be an example. They'll come. Just be an example. And, I was talking about going on those 12-step calls and looking in the eyes. And a year or two ago, I was rereading Leaves of Grass, Walt Whitman. And I'm reading along there, and all of a sudden this little paragraph just jumped out and hit me between the eyes. And so I kind of use it now every time I talk. Whitman says, why should I want to see God better than this day? I see God in every day and in every hour therein. Then he said, in the eyes of the men and women, I see God. And in my own eyes, in the glass. Thanks.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.